Andrew is the current president of the Associated Students there at MJC, and Korey is his vice president. And not only are we going to talk about MJC, but I hope they have some news about what's going on in the state of California and what we can expect as far as enrollment funding and possible future education. So we're kind of getting set up over here. I think tonight is a little bit different because we have the table, so we have all of our paperwork here. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Andrew.
Happy to be
and
here.
Korey.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. You're the president and vice president of the Associated Students at Modesto Junior College. That's
Yes.
quite a title.
It is.
In the past, I've talked with Douglas Dyerson because he held that position for what, a year or two?
A year. He's currently the student trustee for the Yosemite Community College District.
Yeah, so he kind of moved on to a different position, and you two were voted in. And tell us a little bit about what that entails and what your jobs are. Andrew?
So basically, the main purpose of the student government at MJC, we call ourselves the Student Senate or the Associated Students of Modesto Junior College, is we are the elected student representatives to all. There's 118 full-time students and about 124 students altogether with the part-time students. We are their elected representatives to all levels, whether it is the local college level, the district level. As I mentioned, Doug Dyerson is the current trustee to that. The regional level and even the state level, we sometimes advocate for them at the state level. So that is our purpose. We are always their representatives because under certain state laws such as Ed Code and Title V, which is in Ed Code, students have the right to be at the table and have a voice at all times and play a part in the governance of the school. So that is what we are there for, is their student representative.
At the table for what? Is it to raise the fees, build a parking garage that, that has been an ongoing issue with me personally for about 26 years because there's zero parking.
Yes.
I mean, unless you get there the night before, so.
Yeah, I know. Basically, so there's a different committee, or sometimes referred to as councils, for virtually everything. There is a college council, which Korey sits on. It's the highest governing body for the entire school. You mentioned parking. There is actually a parking committee, I believe.
Good.
Yeah. I don't know what they do. I don't know if they try and buy more parking areas or that infamous parking garage that never got built. I'm not sure how all that plays out, but there is a committee and a council for virtually everything, and students have a right to sit at the table there and have their voices heard.
How long have you been a student at MJC, Korey?
I have been a student at MJC a year now.
And what got you interested in running for the student body and being a representative for your fellow classmates?
Well, it started, I met the president as of now, and he spoke to me a little bit about it, and I seemed kind of interested. So he took me to the office and introduced me to a bunch of people, so I was like, okay, I'll try it out. And then I met Andrew, and Andrew's like, oh, I'm going to be running for president. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I don't know what I want to do. I'm still really new at this. Andrew and I started to work very closely together, seeing that we worked amazingly together. So we decided, why not run together if we work this well together already?
Now you say work together. What is it that you're working toward at this point in time? Because you are newly elected, or fairly new, I should say.
Right.
And what is on your docket to accomplish during your term?
You?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, we're currently in a transitional period from the current administration into our administration. So the first goal, I'd say, is to get the incoming administration and executives and senators as well trained as possible. That way we present as strong a front as possible to we don't want a huge gap in the leadership between students to students. So that I'd say would be the first goal. And then for the next year or so, the main goal that I have is to continue upgrading the amount of representation that we have. Under the past two administrations, both Doug Dyerson's administration and the current one, Kevin Sabo, students have gotten more representation than they could ever possibly want. Basically, we have student representatives on councils and committees that we never had students on before. So that would be my main goal, is to continue upgrading that and getting more student representation. We're currently in the conquest of getting a second student trustee for the board, so there would be another person sitting next to Doug, ensuring that the Board of Trustees always has students in mind. That would be my main goals. I don't know if you have any other main goals.
Well, to explain the student trustee, we have our sister college, Columbia, and we switch off trustee every other year. So that's what Andrew's trying to say. We want a trustee for Modesto Junior College and a trustee for Columbia College each year sitting on the board, not switching off every other year, because even though they're our sister college, we're extremely different.
Boy, that's the truth. I've been up to Columbia College, and it is extremely different than MJC.
Yes.
And I wonder why it's so far away, and yet it doesn't have its own district. Do you know why that is?
For most California community colleges, it's very rare to have a single college district. You have colleges down in Southern California, like the LA9, where there's more than two colleges in one district. So granted, we are very, very far away, and we are two very different colleges. As I mentioned, we have 24,000 students. They have close to 4,000 full-time altogether. So I don't know how well they would stand on their own, and though MJC could definitely stand quite well on its own, it's Columbia probably couldn't. So I'm not exactly sure why they were bunched together, but
Are there any other community colleges, like with 4,000 or 5,000 students within this area, that may be on the horizon to be absorbed into the Yosemite Community College district?
Well, one thing, colleges that are nearby that, well, first of all, College of Sequoias, it's in our region, it's not too far away from here. They recently went on what's called show cause, so they're losing their accreditation, which means that the degrees and credits that students earn at that school will very soon be worth almost nothing, making it difficult for that school to stand on its own and making it difficult for that district to maintain it. Therefore, the only other instance where it's ever happened was Compton Community College, and another district actually did buy them out. So that could be a possibility where in the near future, if College of Sequoias does in fact lose its accreditation, they would need to be bought out by another district, and Yosemite Community College District is one of the more close districts to do that. We also have a learning center in Patterson. We just call it the Patterson Learning Center. And over time, as those develop for years and years, there is always potential for that to become an actual community college. It takes normally about 14 years for that to happen, so it's still got a couple more years to go. But it is potential that that could also happen.
Tell me a little bit more about the center in Patterson, the Learning Center. Is it set up as if it's a college campus currently?
It is actually. It's a very independent working campus because, like Columbia, it's very far away from Modesto, so it can't really lean on Modesto as much as we for ourselves. We actually have two campuses, but we're close enough that we can function as one school. Whereas Patterson was built quite a few years ago during the bubble years, basically, when education in California was booming, and not only us but community colleges all across the state were building learning centers. So it is meant to function as its own community college, just not independent by itself. But it is quite independent. It's a very large campus for being a learning center, and it services quite a few students. I'm not actually sure of the number, though.
When you say, I'm going to kind of go back to the beginning of the interview here, that you are a representative for the student body, is it a partisan student body in that it's more Democratic leaning or Republican leaning?
Do you go?
Go ahead.
Okay.
We haven't heard from you hardly at all, so you may pass it off to him if you'd like, but we're coming back to you, so prepare yourself.
You can start.
Okay. So the Associated Student Government at MJC is is never meant to be partisan. There are times when student governments, MJC included, may appear to be a little bit more partisan, and that's because we do advocate at the state level, and at times the Democratic Party might actually appear to be a little bit more appropriate for student government and community college students in general. They do appreciate giving more funding and lowering fees for students. But lately, there is actually a supermajority in the state government of Democrats, and there are quite a few concerning bills that have come up that would negate the positive impacts that they've had in the past. So we are meant to be nonpartisan at all times. We try to be as nonpartisan as possible. We never endorse candidates. I, as an independent, can endorse, an independent person can endorse a candidate, but we never do that. But the organization itself never does.
Now, I notice you hold forums sometimes at the college. I believe that you had, for school board, there was a forum held there, as well as I think the city of Modesto, the districts, I think there was a forum there about a year and a half ago. I don't know if you were at the college then. Have you attended any of those forums?
I have not, but I've heard of them, and it's not the Associated Students that's putting it on, it is a club that's putting it on.
The club is called the Freedom Forum of Modesto Junior College. It is the nonpartisan political science club. I'm actually the former president of that also. Yeah, so that club alone, with this, not necessarily in collaboration with the student government, but with the support, obviously, the student government was always there to give a helping hand whenever possible. But that club alone has put on a student forum about the Modesto City districts, also the Modesto City mayor's race. That was definitely a very good forum. That was the first political forum I ever went to, and it was quite funny because the result, we did a straw poll within the forum, and the results were quite similar to that of the actual election in Modesto, where Marsh won by just a hair and Brad Hahn was just behind. Then also, just recently, 2 semesters ago, we did put on a political forum for the 21st Assembly District of California, which was the Adam Gray, Jack Mobley race. That was also a very good forum. It was the last forum I went to and oversaw, and so we do partake in those, and the student government does support it as much as possible. But it's normally given out to a club such as the Freedom Forum. There's also a College Republicans Club. There's going to be a College Democrats Club, and there's MECHA, which is the Hispanic Leadership Club on campus. They're very active in politics as well.
Did you happen to do a straw poll for the Gray Mobley race?
We wanted to, but we figured that it would be it would be hard to get the candidates to agree to that for some lucky reason. With the city mayoral race, all 4 candidates that showed up were more than happy to abide by that, whereas the Jack Mobley and Adam Gray race was quite a bit more contested, I guess, and there was more money involved, and so I don't think they would have liked to have that done. We would have liked to, though.
You're currently serving as president and vice president, which is an elected office. Do you see this as kind of like kindergarten or grade school learning concerning maybe a future in furthering a political career? Go ahead, Korey.
It is kind of like a kiddie pool. When you go up to the higher grades, you're like, wow, like these are really like the big boys playing. We're just like a small town, little government, but it's a great learning experience because you do deal with issues, even though they're not on the bigger scale. There's some of the same issues that you will deal with when you get up in higher governments.
I've often heard that all politics are local. As a matter of fact, I think that's Emerson Drake who says that, and he'll be joining us in just a few minutes. I hear him in the control booth there. And what you were just saying is very similar to that. What you're dealing with now possibly will be the same things that you'll be dealing with at a higher level. Same thing, just different players and maybe more money, as you were saying, with the California Assembly race. So how do you see your future playing out? It seems like you're loving it, other than coming on TV, because I think this might be a first for you. But other than that, how are you liking holding the office and coming out and being a representative for the students?
I love it. I love being able to speak to the students and then go back to the councils and say, this is what the students feel. These are the students' opinions, because administrators don't always have the opportunity to walk out on the campus and ask the students, what are your guys' opinions? They just assume that's their opinion.
Which brings me to my next question, and either one of you are free to answer this. What happens when it is, and I won't even say a majority, but a minority feeling or desire of the student body, and it differs from your own personal? How do you deal with that in saying, okay, there's 30% or 40% that feel this way, 50 or 60% that feel this way, but just because the majority feels this way doesn't mean that the minority vote or feeling toward a particular bill or action shouldn't be heard? How do you deal with that when the majority is really what you really want? Do you represent and give a voice to that 30 or 40%?
Definitely. It's always best practice to give a voice to all students. In the event that normally you'd be surprised how often students' opinions are all pretty much the same, because 90% of the time it has something to do with raising the fees on students, and no student is happy with that. So they do agree quite often, but every once in a while there is a differing of opinions where, like, for internal matters such as that, the student government at MJC recently passed a new constitution, and there was a small majority of students that did not like the idea whatsoever. So they voiced their opinions and tried to prevent it from happening. And what the administration, it was not my administration at the time, but what the administration at the time had done was they held forums to try to explain why the need for the new constitution was necessary, and basically oftentimes when there's a differing of opinion, it's because of a lack of information. So that's what the student government at that time did, was they tried to provide more information for the students to get more collaboration between their opinions. So in the event that a situation like that would ever happen, we would definitely hear everyone out and see what their side of the story is. And also, as a student myself, I do have my own opinion, so I would definitely voice that to the other students and try and explain to them why I feel the way I feel. And hopefully through communication we can get on the same page, I guess.
Well, take it a step further. Let's say they feel they're in the 30%, we'll just say, because they may not have all the answers or understanding. But once it's been explained to them and they're still in the 30%, and they still want to take this side versus the majority side, how well of a representation are you giving that 30% when you take it to the table? Are you being fair to all of the students across the board when you bring their concerns and you say, we have 70% that feel this way, but there is 30% and these are their concerns and this is why?
We have said that on College Council. We've had an issue that came up where there are some students that disagreed with it, but the majority of students agreed with it. So we said majority of students do agree with this, but there are some students that don't agree with this, and this is why they don't agree with this. So we still voice their opinions, but we have to voice both the opinions and think about what's going to be better for the students.
How is the election process carried out at MJC?
Well, it's students are elected by students, and the elections themselves are facilitated by the students. In our instance, there was a elections subcommittee established of, I believe there was 3 members altogether, and they're just the governing body for the elections. There are many other volunteers that offer a lot of their time, and we appreciate that. But there does have to be a group of students that make the tough decisions in the event that there is a situation or a crisis or something like that. But for the most part, The elections are held within the first week of April. It is mandated by the recently elected Constitution and bylaws that the first week of April, the student government elections will be held. And it like I mentioned, we have 2 campuses, so it has to incorporate both. We did this year, it was the first 2 days of that week, we did it on our West Campus, and then the second 2 days, we did it on our East Campus, and then the last day was when we actually finalized and announced the results. Anyone that is at MJC and is a current student can vote. There is obviously a mandate that they have to have some sort of photo ID to show and prove that they are a student. We have a large booklet that has all the students' names in there, and we cross them out. Everyone gets 1 vote. There is no proxy voting or anything such as that. They're tabulated at the end of every day and then tabulated once again at the end of the week to finalize everything, and that's pretty simple, and no one's complained about the way we run our elections, so I think we do a pretty good job.
Did you have something to say? Go
To
ahead.
extend on that a little bit more, everyone that's volunteering and everyone in the subcommittee are not running for those elections, just to clarify that.
Well, that kind of brings one more question before we'll get your contact info here in a minute, and that is, can anyone run for office, or are you handpicked by that subcommittee?
Anyone can run for the office except for president. President has to have a year, I believe.
Yeah, it's one year. No, it's 1 semester within a year, within the last year, fiscal year, I believe it is. 1 semester of participation within the student government within the last fiscal year. That way, there's no. Actually, it can be overridden by the elections subcommittee, but it's recommended that no one with that little experience run for president.
Just so you kind of know what's going on at the college.
Yeah, and there's also the mandate that the president have a running mate for an executive vice president. We ran as a ticket.
Well, congratulations to you both.
Thank you.
And I see a bright future for you. I've known you a little bit longer than Korey, so I've seen you around town at some of those forums. So
Definitely.
I appreciate you being there, not just at MJC, but also active in the community as well. Tell us a little bit about MJC, where we can sign up to take some classes, and that Freedom Forum, because I know they have a Facebook page.
Start with Freedom Forum.
So Freedom Forum, it's a club open to any students at MJC that are just interested in politics. We actually have community members show up every once in a while. John Gunderson, the Modesto City Council member, he attended a meeting and just joined in the conversation. That's probably the most popular thing about the club is during our meetings we have what's called current events, and we discuss political science and politics in general on all levels. So anyone can join, just being an active student, and anyone can partake in the conversation if you're interested. We do have a Facebook page. It's Freedom Forum, one word, at MJC. You just friend it, and someone will get in touch with you. We also have a website, which is mjcfreedomforum.com.
Thank you. And Korey?
So if you want to register for MJC, I actually just helped my brother with this morning. You're going to go to mjc.edu, and then you're going to go on the right-hand side, and there's going to be apply here, register. There's also other things on there for financial aid and different information about the college, and there's a whole bunch of links. You could click on it and look around.
Thank you very much for joining me. Korey?
It was really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. And Andrew.